Anyone that you spend a lot of time with, you're going to experience conflict because it is just impossible for you to agree with someone about everything. And you're either going to handle it with a possibility of improving the situation, or you're going to avoid it and have the issues continue to come up over and over and over again. Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how uncomfortable it can feel to have hard conversations and what you can do about it if you find yourself avoiding having hard conversations or just feeling a nervous wreck and not feeling the motivation to do it at all because you would rather just keep the peace, or because you're afraid, or because you already know how it's going to turn out and you're just like, why bother? Okay, we're going to talk about that and what you can do about it, because having hard conversations is going to keep coming up for you. You're going to continuously encounter conflict in your marriage, no matter how good it is, whatever the current state of your marriage is, conflict is going to come up. And until you know how to handle it, you're going to experience the discomfort so much more when you decide not to handle it. Okay. So I'm going to start this off with saying that it is true that some people have an easier time with confrontation. Okay. I happen to be one of those people. I have always been a strong advocate for myself, sometimes a little too strong, and I've had to reel it in. And in the past, I had no tact with it, which meant that it didn't turn out well. So I had every reason to avoid having hard conversations in my relationships. But for some reason, maybe it's the Aries in me, the fieriness. I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm just going to go with it. But I've always just done it because I don't want to keep experiencing the same BS over and over again. And that's that. However, a lot of my clients actually have trouble with this. And so I thought it'd be good to talk about this on the show. If you are also like my clients and you're like, I don't want to, it's uncomfortable, it's scary, it makes me nervous, I feel anxious about it, I don't know what to say, I don't want it to go bad, I just want to know that it's going to go well for me to do it. And until I know it's going to go well, I don't want to do it, which I totally understand, right? Because who wants to sign up for an uncomfortable experience, right? I don't want to. So this episode is for those of you who are uncomfortable with confrontation, but you know that it's important to bring these issues up. And so let's get into it. Okay. So one thing that I have come to realize over the years, which I wish I learned sooner, if I'm being honest, is that conflict is inevitable in your marriage, in any relationship, actually, with your kids, with your spouse, with your coworkers, your family members, you name it, right? Anyone that you spend a lot of time with, you're going to experience conflict because it is just impossible for you to agree with someone about everything, right? And you're either going to handle it with a possibility of improving the situation, or you're going to avoid it and have the issues continue to come up over and over and over again. And for those of you who choose to avoid, you are choosing for things to be easy now and for them to be hard later. The other side of it is to choose to do the hard thing and for things to be easy later. So those are your two options when you're faced with conflict, okay? But the thing is, with choosing easy now, aka wanting to feel comfortable, prioritizing feeling comfortable over feeling uncomfortable just because of the uncertainty, the issues don't go away just because you don't want to deal with them, just because you don't want to address whatever it is that's going on. And the truth of the matter is that the issues actually become bigger and more frustrating, and your resentment grows when you don't deal with them. Okay, so the impact of choosing easy right now actually has long lasting effects that you are probably dealing with on a very regular basis that you highly dislike. So, whenever we don't deal with issues, we're choosing to keep the discomfort within ourselves because we are not giving our partner, our husbands, the opportunity to help us with whatever the problem is. We're already deciding that they're not going to help us, that this is a hopeless situation, and we keep it to ourselves, which then has a negative ripple effect of, okay, well, I'm going to keep it all in. I'm not going to talk about it. And then it happens again because it wasn't addressed, because our husbands don't know. And then it just piles on. And eventually, we can't take it anymore. And we start to become more naggy. We start to become more cranky and irritable. And we start to become more resentful. And we have no interest in hanging out with them, doing anything fun. We have no sense of humor around them. And there is just no working on the marriage. There is no motivation to connect. And when your marriage is disconnected, communication just goes to shit. Okay? So does partnership. Connection literally holds the marriage together. That's what helps you feel more resilient towards hard stuff like parenting, right? Handling the more challenging issues when it comes to parenting, being able to navigate everyday stressors. All of that is helped and supported by connecting, by feeling connected with our spouse. But when we don't feel connected and we're not motivated to connect, it all ties back to what aren't we communicating? What are we not being clear about? What are we keeping for ourselves? And where are we not being transparent, where we really should be being transparent, so that our marriage is based on reality and we are giving our marriage a chance to actually become its fullest potential, right? But when we don't, and we're like, nah, it's not going to go well. I'm going to start yelling. He's going to start yelling. We're not going to be able to come to a resolution. So I'm just going to help us skip through all the drama and I'm just going to deal with it, right? Well, with you deciding to deal with it, it might seem noble, but it actually creates more problems because it will start leaking into how you treat him. It will start leaking into what you are willing to do for him and with him. And he's going to be impacted because he's going to notice that you are different. Your mannerisms are different. Your receptivity is different. Your mood is going to be different. And so he's going to change for the negative as well, because he's like, well, if you're going to be a sourpuss, then I'm going to talk less to you. I'm going to go hang out with my friends more. I'm going to go bury myself in my work. I'm going to ignore you, right? I'm going to start just doing my hobbies and I'll only see you when it's dinner time or when it's time to go to sleep or when it's time to work together with the kids, right? And there will be no more the two of you. It will just be you two as co-parenting roommates, not you two as a couple anymore, okay? And so when we shy away from talking about the hard stuff because we feel like it's impossible to deal with, because we don't think that there's going to be a favorable outcome, or because we don't feel like we are equipped to handle it well, we are locking ourselves in to only have more stress in our lives. But the good news is that when it comes to conflict, you can actually learn communication skills to help you navigate the conflict better, to help you have a better outcome when it comes to having a hard conversation, like being able to partner up together, coming up with a solution together, feeling like the conversation won't have to escalate. There's so many ways that conflict can end, but if we avoid it and we decide that it's going to end poorly, we are locking ourselves into that one outcome when really there are so many other outcomes that can happen, right? This is when it's so important for us to expand our perspective and not allow our minds and previous experiences decide what's going to happen this time, because this time and every single time is different. Plus, the more you work on yourself, the more you improve your communication skills, you are growing as a person. And so you are not the same person with every argument that you are having with your spouse. You are growing. And so you want to remind yourself, like, okay, that one scenario is one of many. What are other possible scenarios that can happen out of this conversation? Are you letting yourself explore those possibilities, or are you only allowing yourself to think of what could go wrong? And for you to go down this line of thinking of, okay, well, how else can this conversation go? That is your way of choosing hard now so that you can have easy later. Okay. Like what I said earlier, you're either choosing easy now, hard later, which is like a long, long time, or you're choosing hard now so that you can set yourself up for more ease and joy in your marriage. We always have a choice that we can make in those situations. The question is, are you going to choose easy now so that you have a hard rest of your marriage? Or will you choose to do the hard now and allow yourselves to rise to the opportunity to grow as a couple and get better at this arguing thing, get better at navigating conflict? That's the beauty of conflict, is that when we choose to grow through those moments, we learn to fight better every time. Whether it's, oh, I took longer to raise my voice, or the argument took less time for us to get through, or, oh, we actually worked together really well to get creative to come up with a solution that works for both of us. Or, oh, I didn't leave this time. I felt like I was comfortable enough to stay in this conversation, right? We have to start measuring how our arguments are going in a smaller way. Because if you're only saying that it's a win, if you guys basically flip a switch, one day you're fighting like at each other's throats, and the only way you could consider it a win is if you are having a calm conversation, that is not how growth works, okay? We need to take baby steps. So what would be a baby step for you to take for you to consider a win in the way you guys argue, right? Set reasonable milestones for you and your spouse to meet so that you can celebrate yourself along the way, so that you can continue motivating yourself and feeling courageous enough or willing enough to participate in the conversation, so that your spouse knows what the hell is going on, so that it doesn't seem like you're just in a bad funk all of the time and he has no idea why, and you've just become a bitter person. And B, you can give your marriage a fighting chance to actually get better over time, because guess what? That's what it's supposed to be like. Your marriage is supposed to get better over time, because if you are working on it together, you are learning more about each other, you are growing as a couple, you are finding ways to support each other more, you are finding ways to have fun more. And unless you're giving your marriage that chance by dealing with the hard right now, you're not going to have the easy later. You're just going to have more hard. And so you're just going to confirm in your mind, yeah, marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. Okay, well, what if marriage wasn't hard all the time? What would that look like? And what would you need to do in order to create that for yourself? And that's actually one of my pet peeves is when someone says, oh yeah, marriage is hard. Marriage has hard moments, but I don't believe that marriage has to be hard. If you think marriage is hard all the time, then we need to talk, because there could be something different that you could be doing to change your experience. So the next time you find yourself wanting to avoid having a hard conversation because you're like, oh, I know how it's going to turn out, this is just an utter waste of time, or oh my God, I don't know what to say, I want you to consider, okay, yeah, I'm worried that it's not going to go well. Cool. Acknowledge your feelings. I'm always about honoring your feelings. But then expand it and say, okay, well, what if it goes well? What would I need to happen for it to go well? And if your anxiety peaks and you're like, oh, but what if they say this? And oh my gosh, okay, cool. What if they say that? How will you handle it, right? You're always going to want to prepare yourself for these conversations before going into them. Because if you don't, and if you're not grounded and you're not prepared, knowing already what it is that you are wanting out of the conversation and who you want to be, who you want to show up as in the conversation, you're only going to be reactive. So he's going to do what he normally does, and then you're going to fall in line and do what you normally do, and you're going to have the same type of fight. But what I am inviting you to do is to challenge yourself to grow with each argument. Consider what happens usually and challenge yourself to be like, okay, well, what if instead of doing this time, I did this, right? And that can only happen if you intentionally consider how you're going to go into the conversation differently. When we have a focus of, okay, in this fight, I'm going to do my best to be the best listener possible. No matter what he says, no matter how offended I might initially feel, listening to what he's saying, I'm going to be the best damn listener. You can then lean on your promise to yourself to be like, oh, he said something and I feel anger rising up in me, but I said that I was going to be a good listener. And so I'm going to continue listening. I'm not going to talk over him. I'm not going to roll my eyes. I'm going to let him finish. And then I'm going to process what he said. And then I'm going to respond. Versus what normally happens is the back and forth and tit for tat. And essentially you're having two different conversations because neither one of you are listening. Neither one of you even know what it is that you're wanting out of the conversation. You just went in there knowing that you're unhappy and you have no goal in mind. And so you kind of just go where the wind takes you, right? That's not how fighting for your marriage looks like. That is how fighting just to fight looks like. So what I'm asking you to do is, can you be more intentional about it? And the beauty behind this is that as the way you communicate and the way you fight evolves, it will get easier and easier, okay? You will feel less hesitant to bring up hard topics. You will feel more confident in how you're handling it. And it will just be like, oh yeah, okay, I got to bring this up. And you're not going to feel that hesitation because you're going to have more and more examples of how it's gotten better over time because you have set those reasonable milestones for yourself in how communication with your husband is going to improve. And you are not just being black and white about it. Oh, well, we fought, so that's an automatic failure. I should not bring up anything ever again. No. Remember, conflict is inevitable. It's the arguing part that's optional. So can you choose to show up differently, to react differently so that you're not arguing, so that you're more so having a conversation, right? And that all starts with having the courage to have the conversation and being super intentional about how am I going to show up? What is it that I want out of this conversation? And make sure that that goal that you have is not to make them feel bad because that's already setting the two of you up for failure, okay? So that's the choice that you have to make. Choose easy now, hard forever, or choose hard now and easy later, okay? Because doing this work now is what's going to give you that ripple effect of more ease, more joy, more partnership, more love, more connection in your marriage. And that's what you deserve. That's what your marriage deserves. So, can you give what your marriage deserves and give it a fighting chance by having the courage to have those hard conversations? And if you are having those hard conversations and you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, no matter what we try, it's just going poorly, then let's talk, okay? Because then it's just a skill gap, and that I can help you with, okay? And that's it for this episode. Can you dare to choose hard now so that you can have it easier going forward and allow yourself to have the marriage that you deserve, for it to get better and better, and for you to model to your kids that marriage can be enjoyable even while having kids, that you can grow your marriage alongside your kids. I love you. I hope this was helpful. Let me know what you loved most about this, what you're taking away. And if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please do them a favor and share this episode with them. And if you love the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. I would so appreciate it. And I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.